I believe the Nigerian Navy can do with enhanced capacity.
Excellency, my former chairman, you have 1 minute remaining.
Yes, sir, but the Ningi spoke for 5 minutes. I think you have obligation to be fair to all senators. On this occasion, regardless of ranking. Abi, you can't have 5 minutes, you announce it, so at least give me 4.5 minutes. Because my own argument is to the contrary. So I understand the general trend, but I want to be on record that I do not think at this point, in this manner, I emphasize in this manner because I believe if this need really exists, it should benefit from the intelligence information that the executive may have.
Mr. President, my name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I do represent Bauchi Central. Mr. President, this bill is extremely important. It is important that we recognize this government intention of creating a blue economy. This blue economy will become a mirage at the end of the day if it is not backed by a Coast Guard like this one. Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Well done. Thank you.
Yes, there will be a possibility of Navy saying that there is an encroachment. And that is why in legislative business, there are processes. By the time this bill goes into second reading, Navy will be invited. The possibility of creating a Coast Guard are there. It is there, and then there will be limitations to what Coast Guard will do and what the Navy is doing. And I listened to Senator Yahya very well, and I understand the sentiments that the Navy may not likely appreciate what you are trying to do. This nation, the destiny of this nation, supersedes an institution. We cannot live in the past and begin to think will make a difference. Sir, the United States have the strongest Navy in the world. They have Coast Guard. India, one of the strongest Navy in the world, they have Coast Guard. Australia, one of the strongest and the most versatile marine in the world, they have Coast Guard. What the committee needs to do by the time this thing is taken to a second reading is to study those countries and the possibility of getting them to a standard so that there will be no encroachment.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, we have one of the best marine on the continent of Africa, over 3,500 square meters. Yet, over 63 years, 64 now to our independence, one of the challenging economic prospects is our inability to control the Coast Guard, to control the marine. One of the problems of this country is our inability to stop oil theft and so on and so forth. I am very positive.
Thank you.
Once this bill gets into the corridor,
Thank you.
and the government is serious about it, those things will be a thing of the past.
Thank you very much. But I'm a bit worried that you can predict me so well. And I don't have a particular habit, but I try to be objective. Bear in mind the fact that it is not most of the time whether some of the problems we seek to cure, whether they exist and whether we need to cure them. The issue for me is how best to get it done. I don't think in this Senate there's any one of us who will object to anything that can be done to protect our maritime industry, blue economy, red economy, whatever. My first point, Mr. President, is that things that have to do with national security, I will be much safer if they were to come by way of executive bills. Why? Because the president is the one who has the opportunity and the responsibility to hear and coordinate the work of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the police, and other security institutions, as well as the Office of the National Security Advisor. I find courage with the very enlightened comments of Senator Yahaya, former leader of this House, who shared with us his own experiences. I think that the issue is not whether we need to protect our coastal waters. And I'm not carried away when we borrow, often out of context, what is going on in other countries without tracing the history of what gave birth to those institutions in those countries. Right now, I did have the opportunity to hear what the chairman of the Navy Committee will say. I believe the Nigerian Navy can do with enhanced capacity.
Excellency, my former chairman, you have 1 minute remaining.
Yes, sir, but the Ningi spoke for 5 minutes. I think you have obligation to be fair to all senators on this occasion, regardless of ranking. Abi, you can't have 5 minutes, you announce it, so at least give me 4.5 minutes. Because my own argument is to the contrary. So I understand the general trend, but I want to be on record that I do not think at this point, in this manner, I emphasize in this manner because I believe if this need really exists, it should benefit from the intelligence information that the executive may have. On the basis of those informations, they will decide whether there is a gap that can be filled by a coastal guide. As it is today, if we are not careful, we are going to have a lot of competition instead of institutions complementing each other. That has been the problem that gave rise to, for example, sir, just 2 minutes, I will round up. This is how we created the National Road Safety Commission, with a huge overhead. When I was growing up, that job was being done by the traffic division of the Nigeria police. And they were more efficient than it is today. Those of us who travel on the road, I don't know if you have found the Road Safety Commission be helpful. They were created. That is how we created the Nigerian Civil Defense to protect pipelines, government properties. And I don't know now whether the government properties are safer or not. And each time we think that if we have a problem, we have to create an institution on our own. As Parliament, I think.
I'm constrained. I have to draw your attention to Order 52A.
Yes, sir.
Senator must confine his observations to the subject under discussion and may not introduce matter irrelevant thereto. We're talking about Coast Guard. So the issue of rail safety, the issue of this shouldn't come up. I'm constrained. I have to rule out over that on that. Continue, my former chairman. I'm sorry.
Thank you. You have the monopoly to interpret the rules. But I will say that in making a debate of creating institutions, it is not out of the subject matter to make reference to similar institutions that have been created, which in the end added no value. That is why I laid that foundation.
Thank you.
Let me round up by saying that I plead with my colleague that issues like this should be referred to the National Security Advisor. It should be referred to the executive. They alone can tell us whether or not additional institution is required. For now, I believe our mandate should be to try to strengthen the Navy, get them to properly focus on
Thank you,
their
Mr.
basic
Chairman.
needs so that they can do their job more efficiently, rather than creating a coastal guide that will just be another institution leading to endless competition and all of the things that arise from duplication.
Thank you. I will yield the floor to, but we now have one minute. Okay. One minute, please.
Thank you, Mr.
We allowed our former national chairman to have his way because he's our elder. There's nothing we can do about that. But let's abide by 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Karimi Sunday Steve. I represent Kogi West. Mr. President, the need for a Coast Guard cannot be overemphasized. The MPA has a responsibility on our waterways, and they ask for this. So if we say the executive doesn't, they are the one representing the executive in the first place, and they asked for this bill. So the executive has an in it. And we've seen even kidnapping through the waterways in Lagos now. Many. And if you look at the way terrorism is going on all over the world, piracy on the waterway, if anybody is saying that we don't have a need of this, then we are not preparing well for eventualities. So it is something that is urgently needed, and we all have to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Karimi, for your wonderful contribution. Senator Mohammed Nduse.
One, the Navy is currently collaborating with NIMASA. They have a joint project where Navy has effectively deployed all its assets, and it's been so effective. I also want to draw our attention to that project, which is named Deep Blue Project. And most of the propositions, as elegant as they may be, contained in this bill are already currently being carried out by this joint initiative between the Navy and NIMASA. So I align myself partly with what Senator Oshiomole said, that we must be mindful of duplication, mindful of cost, and also explore avenues so far created and see how effective this joint initiative has been, and to study it and see how we can add impetus to what is going on currently.
Thank you, thank you. Senator Oshiomole, you have commanded so many people on this floor.
Thank you very much, our Senate President. Once again, I'm Otumba Benga Daniel, incidentally the chairman of Navy. I want to start by appreciating the initiator of this bill, and also appreciate all the people who have spoken passionately based on their conviction and the amount of information that is available to them. However, I want to plead, as a few people have also opined, that matters of security...
Let's listen to the Chairman of the Commission Navy very well, please. Can we listen to you in silence, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Matters of security are matters that we need to be extremely careful about. People who are members of the Navy Committee here had opportunity to visit the Navy headquarters recently. And I have to confess to you, the amount of technology and sophistication that is deployed is something that's unprecedented. We went through an installation called the Falcon Eye. And from the naval headquarters here, I can assure you that if something goes wrong in any area of our naval formation, instantly it is picked. We witnessed it firsthand. I'm also not unaware that, for instance, in the last 2 weeks, the Navy surveillance have seized several vehicles. I knew this because a number of people, knowing that I'm chairman of Navy, will come to me to appeal to the naval authorities to release their vehicles. And going into what happened, I am convinced that what we require to do, once again, is not proliferation. What we need to work out is to look at how we can improve technology. There are several kilometers of naval water which the Navy is looking at. It is impossible for it to be done manually. There isn't anything I think the Naval Coast Guard can do that cannot be done technologically. And it is therefore my submission. Maybe if we have opportunity for a public hearing, we will also invite in a closed circle for a few stakeholders who have information to come and tell us what is going on here. We do respect, Mr. President, sir. We need to be extremely very careful on matters that has to do with national security. It's a lot more than we are seeing. And sometimes, I beg to say, the more you look, the less you see. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.